Somebody get a doctor. I need a shot of medicine, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bad Medicine Podcast number 9 coming at you with the one, the only, the undisputed, undefeated, unchallenged heavyweight champion of beer drinking, the Beer City Bruiser, Matt Winchester.
Hey guys, what's up?
We always give the best intros.
I'm trying out some new intros. I want to see how it works if I can give Buffer a run for his money.
Oh, I think you could. You could undercut them too. Instead of going for $1 million a show, just go for like 999,000.
Oh, I clearly think I'm worth every penny. Absolutely. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Matt Winchester, Ring of Honor's own, as well as many other promotions around the country, probably damn near all of them. Mr. Winchester, if you wanted to give the audience kind of a brief rundown about how you kind of got to where you're at. I'm sure you've done it all before, but for our listeners in the UK, we know they don't hear too well. So maybe just give us a quick rundown of how you got to where you're at.
All right. Well, I started training under Trevor Adonis back in 2000, I think it was 2001, somewhere around there. And trained for a couple of years with him, and then moved down to Missouri to train under the great Harley Race. Learning more about the business side of things. Came back home and kind of made myself on the Wisconsin Indies again. Well, Midwest Indies at that point. Before going to Harley's, I pretty much hung around just Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois. And then after Harley's is when I kind of became more of a national, I guess you could say. And then in 2014, I did a tryout camp for Ring of Honor, and I was put in the top prospect tournament for 2015, and I've been with the company ever since.
Awesome. And I know you and I go back quite a bit, and, it's kind of funny how we kind of remember seeing Ring of Honor start out in its kind of its early days and what it was trying to make a name for itself. And it is interesting how it's grown. And I think they've got a real niche market with, they're not trying to be something they're not. They're not trying to put on a spectacle of fireworks and pyro and jumbotrons and all this. They're giving people, quality wrestling that, that it's very funny because I know that I've watched, some Ring of Honor lately and, a lot of the up and coming guys. And it's funny because I watched that compared to I watched an old episode of WCW Thunder on Friday night, and I'm watching these guys wrestle, and I'm just like, Jesus, Scott Hall's out there working. Who the heck? He was working Saturn, and it was like the most basic camp match you've ever seen in your life. These guys just had to be laughing. And then you'll go and you'll flip over to Ring of Honor, or NXT, or New Japan, or name the company. And it's just like, wow, things have really changed. And I think that's about all you need to say about it, the styles and things.
The cool thing about Ring of Honor is when we get somebody that comes over from WWE and they come into Ring of Honor, they learn real quick that we're not WWE. We have a couple agents that were agents over there, and they came over by us, and right away, Hunter, who's the booker, sits him aside and goes, "Look, we're not WWE. We don't do all that. We're Ring of Honor. We have our own thing, and you can see them kind of go through a learning process. Like, well, what do you mean? What does that mean? And it's like, let the guys kind of be the creative force behind it, and you just kind of lead them in the direction we want to go, which I think is really cool,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the, and maybe you can kind of dive into it a little bit for the listeners as far as, the big difference between, wrestling in WWE and wrestling on, whether it be Ring of Honor or New Japan or whatever, kind of go into the differences a little bit and how, WWE is a bit more entertainment / TV based versus the others.
The biggest thing is Ring of Honor is character based, where they really want us to have a character. We're not just, we're going out and we're wrestling and stuff, but the Beer City Bruisers, they want me to be the guy that you want to have a beer with at the bar, but you don't want to be across from in the ring, and they hit that home. And the best way we hit it home is in the ring. You know what I mean? We don't do a lot of pre-tapes. We do pre-tapes, we do little vignettes and stuff like that, because sometimes you need that to help with a character. But majority of it's in the ring, telling a story, they'll tell us, for TV stuff, like, hey, you guys have this much time to either tell this whole story in 5 minutes or, plant the seed, and we need this to happen at the end so that the fans will be like, oh, I want to see this next match. Where up in WWE, it's all promos and look.
Oh God, is it ever?
Becky Lynch has a hurt knee and she has to have a crutch for a year and a half. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that anymore. We really go after the character-based storytelling in the match. We always hear about moments in wrestling. They're always telling us, like, get a moment. Like, you can have a great 5-star match, but you want to have that moment that fans talk about. Where it's a quick 90-second thing that happens where fans are like, oh, I remember when this happened.
Yep.
And that's the major difference. Like, we have TV and stuff like that. And they tell us work the cameras and, you got to sell appropriately to the cameras and stuff like that. But again, it's all in the ring. It's not backstage. It's not hokey promos. You know what I mean? The characters that we have, even the most ironic, off the wall characters, are still believable characters.
Right. And I think what's interesting about that is, similar to working in the indies where you have no TV, people have no idea who you are, can't remember your name from the next guy. But in Ring of Honor, because, you don't have, what does WWE have now? You got 3 hours with Raw, 2 hours with SmackDown,
1 hour NXT,
1 hour of NXT,
17-hour pay-per-view.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have all this time per week to like shoehorn and wedge in a character and try to get them over to the people. Whereas you guys have a 1 hour show and the Beer City Bruiser might have, if you're not having a match, maybe you got, 45 seconds to do something that they can, wedge into a time slot somewhere in there. So I think it really, it says a lot for you guys with what you can do with the limited time you have to get a character over and to somebody the audience can connect with.
But I think that goes back to the old, like Quinn, you said we go way back. I remember we used to watch old AWA and NWA tapes together and stuff. And you go back then, they only had an hour-long TV show. You know what I mean?
It's true.
You had to get Nick Bockwinkel over in an hour, you had to get the Road Warriors over in an hour. And if you take that old formula, I think it's more organic when you have less time because you don't just give everybody nowadays a generation of instant gratification where they want it right here, right now. And I think WWE plays to that, because they're so afraid of people not watching their product. We're like with Ring of Honor and stuff, we'll take our time developing a character where every week you tune in. Yeah, maybe it's 45 seconds you see that character. But at the end of it, they want you, the fans want to see the next segment to see what the next 45 seconds is with this guy. And that's a throwback to the old school wrestling. Everyone always used to think Ring of Honor is nothing but flippy little guys, But if you really look at it, it's storytelling. Like we do high impact, high moves, but there's storytelling in all the matches.
Yeah.
Even when we have, babyface versus heel, it's still a babyface. You still have that aggressive babyface that becomes kind of the heel during the match. And then afterwards, becomes back to being the good guy again. They really force on us right now, like honoring the referees, because referees kind of get lost in the shuffle. And I'm a big fan of that because the referee's the guy that, has to take control of the whole match. And so we're not allowed to touch the refs now unless, it's part of the angle. We're not allowed to do cheating in front of the referees, and I think that's going to help because think of it back in the old day, Ric Flair the ref never caught Ric Flair cheating.
No, never.
It was always J.J. Dillon doing something and then the ref would turn around and the babyface would be there and Flair would be like, I don't know what happened. You know what I mean? And that's what I think helped build his character.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too. Sorry, Dave, you'll get your time. You just sit over there and look pretty.
Keep going. Don't worry about me.
But no, and I think you really hit on something there that I think has kind of got lost in the shuffle the last couple of years, and that's with people thinking that like Ring of Honor is just a bunch of flippy guys because, it did have that reputation for a while. But what I think happened was I think you saw an evolution in wrestling, just like you see in all sports where, like I want to I hearken back to that episode of Thunder I watched where I'm like, oh my God, this is the most basic stuff ever. You could go in there, a week of camp and do this match. Whereas now, I mean, you're talking, different, excuse me, different spots and different angles that guys are getting at, and the moves are what they are, and it's incredible and tremendous. But, that happens with all sports. I mean, go back and watch basketball from the 50s. It's bounce passes and everything else. It looks ridiculous. Yeah. Or even football and things like that. So, I mean, I think all athletes in all sports eventually evolve. And I think things have just kind of caught up to it. I mean, I caught NXT the other night. They had some crazy 5-man gauntlet match, and it was just insane. But there was still a story there, and it made sense to a point. So, I mean, I think you can have it both ways. I think you can really wow the people with fireworks and still tell a quality story that, like you said, you can harken back and use those rules of the old days because they still work. Like the average fan sitting there won't know why they get it, but they get it. And they can't explain it.
I wish indie guys would get that because now that I'm a quote unquote name on these shows, you go out there and you watch these indie guys having their WrestleMania matches every single show. It's like they'll hit like 6,000 false finishes and then get in the back and go, I don't know why the crowd's dead. Well, simple, stupid. You didn't tell a story. They're going to clap because they're impressed with your athleticism, but they don't give a shit if you're killing yourself and breaking your neck because you didn't give them a reason to care about you. If you watch my match, I'll go out there, I'll call this guy a jerk face, punch him in the face. He'll kick me in the nuts and everybody will feel sorry for me because we told a simple story. It's like storytelling is wrestling. All the students that I teach now, I try to tell them, like, they always want to work on moves. I said, how about we learn on telling a story first? How about you show me why a wrist lock hurts, and then I'll show you how to do a moonsault.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry Lawler could tell a story with a punch.
Exactly. And you watch Ring of Honor, and that's what makes guys like Jay Lethal so good is Jay Lethal will tell a story. He'll start out with some wrestling and simple stuff, and he'll establish the heel and the baby face, and then he'll give you the fireworks at the end. But by the end, you care so much. You want him to retain that belt because he took the amount of time in the beginning on part of his match to make you care about him.
So, Mr. Winchester, I'm Dave here.
Oh, hey, look.
I finally let him
Hi, buddy.
I was just admiring his hair. It's starting to finally grow back a little bit.
Yeah, I'm never shaving it again. So I kind of want to go back to what you said was in moments, and you gave quite a little bit of a moment in the Hammerstein Ballroom a few months ago. How is performing at the Hammerstein? Because we all grew up watching ECW, just thinking that place was just absolutely nuts, and you got to perform there. So I'd hear your perspective on how cool it was.
Man, it's a dream come true. I'm so grateful for Ring of Honor. We all have bucket lists. When you get in the business and stuff like that, you have all these bucket lists. And because of Ring of Honor, I have one thing left to check off my bucket list, and that's wrestle at MSG, and that's obviously coming up, But, like, I remember the first time in the Hammerstein Ballroom, it's kind of hard not to mark out when you walk in and go, oh, man, I remember when RVD did this, and I remember when Super Crazy did this, and I remember this happened. Or going to the ECW arena, and Silas wrestled the Sandman, and Sandman came out to enter Sandman, and I remember sitting in the back going, this is like high school me, like this is a dream.
Yeah.
I'm in the ECW arena singing Enter Sandman while Sandman's going to the ring, and then it's so awesome to go to these buildings and experience stuff. I wrestled in the building, in Lowell, where Shawn Michaels lost his smile. And I joke with my partner now, Brian Malonis, because that's kind of like his home little arena. I go, dude, your arena's famous for Shawn Michaels losing his smile. Like, that's all anybody's going to remember about this building. And he's like, yeah, shut up, don't remind me. I'm like, hey, the Bradley Center is where Stone Cold Steve Austin, cut the Austin 316 promo. Like, It was amazing. You had Shawn Michaels lose his smile, But it's cool to go in these buildings that have this history, and you can walk around and, I every time I'm on the road with Bubba, Bully Ray, and we go to an old ECW building, I'll have him tell me stories like, hey man, like tell me something, and it usually involves so-and-so is snorting cocaine off a stripper's ass over here and so-and-so is doing, but it's like stories, you get to hear about it, you know what I mean? And it's amazing.
Oh, the fun they could have back in the day before everybody had a camera on their phone.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
So in ROH, and you might have touched based on this a little bit, how much creative involvement do you have, and how much do they actually take out of that?
We have a lot of creative involvement. There are characters and stuff. We do have a creative team, and they have they have a vision that they want to get to. So the way it normally happens is you get together with your opponent, you guys come up with the match and stuff like that, and they'll tell you the finish. But you got to run your match by your agent. We do have agents, and they'll either say, "Oh, that's really good, go ahead," or they might go, "Let's not do that here because this match later on is doing that," or "Let's not do this here because that's too much for this part of the story, and we're gonna touch on that later." And it's really cool because they'll lay out creatively what they are going to do with your character for a couple months. You know what I mean? So you have an idea when you're putting your matches together where you want to go to. But as far as the matches and all that, we have complete creative control. The agents can, ixnay stuff, but that I like when they do that. Like we might come up and go, "Hey, we're going to do a dive at this spot," and they might go, "You know what? No, the match after he's doing a dive. We don't want to kill their dive because they're in the middle of a high program. You're just on a TV squash match, and it makes sense. It protects the product. It helps the fans then every time they watch a show because you guys have been at indie shows. You always see the tackle, drop down, hip toss, headlock takeover, for like 4 matches in a row. It's like, God, do something else. With the agents watching over and having this checklist, none of the matches look the same, and I love that. It keeps us all on our toes, and it's also good because the agents that we do have, Joey Mercury's an agent, Bully Ray's an agent, Todd Sinclair, Hunter. They get to give you their feedback, so you're learning. Like I learn every single match. You guys know me. I'm a student of the game. I love learning new things. So there might be something in my head that sounds really good, and I say it out loud, and then Joey might go, "That's really good, but what if you did this?" Or like Bully does stuff like that, and you're like, "Oh, why didn't I think of that? I'm so stupid," But it's not that you're stupid. You just don't think of it, and you're learning a new perspective.
So on the indies, I was always one of the guys to come up to you every chance I had to be like, "Hey, Matt, if you have the time, can you watch?" And then I would always ask for your advice after. Do you have anybody on the indies or anywhere else coming up to you and doing the same, just trying to pick your brain? Because I think that's the smart thing to do with a guy like you with how much experience you have.
I have a lot of my students because I train at the Thumpers Den Wrestling Academy here in a good old Cudahy, Wisconsin. A lot of them.
Oh, do a little promo for that. You can go ahead and put that over if you want.
Get Frankie on here.
Yeah, like Frankie Thumper DeFalco started the Thumpers Den Wrestling Academy. He asked me to be the head trainer, and I said, yeah, because I want to teach the kids right. Doing these indies, you see, there are indies where I'll just sit in the locker room and nobody will talk to me because they're scared or they're nervous or whatever. And I'll watch matches, but I'm not going to go out of my way to walk up and talk to people, like, "Hey, this is what you did wrong in your match," because I don't know how they're going to react.
Absolutely.
I've met people that get, they've asked me to watch their match. They come back and I'll tell them everything I thought was wrong, and they'll argue with me. Well, you asked me,
It's like, no, you're supposed to watch it and just put me over and tell me how great I am.
Exactly.
Yeah, when you took that drop kick, it looked amazing. I mean, it made no sense in the match, but it was awesome.
So at the Thumpers Den, they're kind of put in their head, you're going to get a lot of the stuff you did wrong, and then stuff will right, and they actually get upset because they'll ask other vets, and these other vets are used to normal indie kids, and they'll tell them what great they did, and you can actually see some of my students get upset because it's like, no, I want to get better, tell me what I did wrong.
Like, yeah, it couldn't have been perfect.
Yeah, and I've had a couple vets come out to me and go, "Wow, your kids are smart, they're doing the right thing." I says, that's because they're being brought in the right way. They're brought in how, like how Quinn, how you were brought in, how I was brought in, how you guys were brought in, so when I'm on the indies, I watch matches, but I'm usually trying to put together my own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Or to be honest, I'm at the merch table trying to make money.
Oh yeah, you're the bigger name that's going to be there, so it's like, yeah, you're a big reason why people came and paid money to see the show is for you. So that does that kind of get a little bit more pressure? Do you like that where you're in the main event and then it's, you want to give the fans a great show and know that they're going to leave happy?
It took me a while to get used to being the quote. I still say quote unquote name just because my wife and friends always make fun of me when I say that. But it took me a while where it's like, okay, the promoter will walk up and go, "Thanks, man. We drew 500 people tonight." And I'll be like, "Oh, great promoting." He's like, "Oh no, it's because they're here to see you." And I'll be like, "Oh, okay. Why do 500 people care about a fat kid from Heartland, Wisconsin?" You know what I mean? Like, so it took me a while to get used to it. As far as pressure, there's not a lot of pressure because what I've found is a lot of the people just want to see my TV stuff. So they want to see me, drink beer and bite people and hit a frog splash. So it's fun coming up with creative ways of doing that to not only make the promoter happy who's paying me to be there, but also make the people that are paying to watch me, get what they want to see out of the match too. And then I still like going out there and Quinn knows this about me. I like to be the best match on the card no matter what, So I still try to do that. Like, hey, there's a reason I'm in Ring of Honor. There's a reason where I'm at. And I might not take 5 or 6 bumps on an indie show. I might just take one. But that one bump's going to mean something, and the people are going to remember it,
Randy Orton over here taking one bump in a match.
Got a bump card, kid. I'm not the young spring chicken I used to be. I used to have a saying my wife created up that said it was, what would Quinn do? Because every time I come up and hit Quinn, how about we do a power bomb on the floor? And Quinn goes, how about we do a headlock takeover in the ring? It took me 20 years to realize he was right.
I am guilty of trying to slow you down a little bit. That's yes.
It took me to get on TV to realize, holy shit, he's right.
The one thing Quinn and I always joke about is remember, I don't know if you remember this, but you and 2 other guys versus Quinn, me, and another guy in a 6-man, obviously, and a 6-man, and Arbo was our manager, and everyone was going over their shit. And little old Diamond Dave's over here just kind of, doing his 100 repetitions of trying to remember everything. And you look over at me like, hey, Damone, you good? And I pause and I look at you and I'm like, yeah. And Harbo goes, Jesus Christ, that sounded confident.
That was in Mattoon, Wisconsin. I remember that.
That was a lot of fun. And I think, and I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit because, now you do training and stuff like that and you're able to help, your students or whatever. But, for you, I guess, when did you know that, okay, I've done what I can here in the Midwest. It's time for me to kind of elevate my game to the next level, because you're working around guys who are good, there's, a number of wrestlers who are incredibly talented, who are, in the wrestling the same time you were and you're able to work with them. But, when did you really know it was time to, okay, I need to move out to work with different people who are maybe quote unquote better than me so I can learn? Because I think once you kind of become the top dog in a certain area, you become that big fish in the small pond. That's kind of when you stop learning. And I know you love to keep learning. So when did that happen for you?
It actually happened when my father-in-law passed away. Because he was always asking me the same question, like, you're the top dog here. Why aren't you out and doing more? And I'd always have the excuse like, oh, I'm too old. No one's going to want me. I'm too old now. And he would always push me to get more out and about, and then I had a guy like Steve Carino who was always in my ear, like, why aren't you doing the Ring of Honor tryout, man? Like, they're going to love you. And in my head, because I had been programmed that Ring of Honor was a certain style that I didn't think I'd fit.
Mm-hmm.
And when he passed away and he left in his will the money for me to do the tryout, I kind of like in my head, that's when I was like, you know what? He believed in me so much. He went out of his way to leave this money for me just to do this tryout. I want to go to this camp and I don't want to just be a guy at this camp. I want to be the guy, because every time you guys have done camps before, there's always that one guy who stands out that everybody talks about. There's guys that are good, but there's always the guy who stands out, And I remember telling my wife, like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, if this is meant to be, I'm going to be the guy and start going to that next level. And the camp was 2 days long. And I remember after the first day, everyone's talking about me and they're putting me over and all that. And I remember going, all right, that's day 1. Let's get day 2 done. And after day 2, Hunter approached me going, we're going to put you in a top prospect tournament. You need to be here it's kind of like when it clicked in my head, like, okay, like I need to
Yeah,
start
I
getting
belong
out
here.
about. Yeah, exactly. And it just took them kind of saying that. I hate to say him passing away kind of opened my eyes, but it did, and I'm very happy for it. And I pay tribute to him every time I wrestle by writing his name on my tape and doing the best I can.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's a great story, and and like you said, sometimes it is an outside force that has to kind of nudge us into, a certain direction for whatever it is. I mean, it could be just a guy working his regular job, he's maybe there for 5 years, and he kind of thinks that this is all there is, and then something happens, and all of a sudden he's got to make a change, and boom, he's doing way better than he ever thought. And I think that's interesting how life can work out like that in so many different things, whether it be sports or life or whatever.
Yeah, and like I was working, like you said, I was working main events everywhere, and I was comfortable, and I see guys now when I do all these random indies and stuff, and I see a guy there that's my age at only, he's happy where he's at, you know what I mean? And he's like you said, Quinn, he just stopped learning, and it's like you look at him going, man, that could have been me, like I could have been that guy. And because of what happened with my father-in-law, I'm not that guy, and I can't put him over enough because I can never go back to a 9-to-5 job now. Like I am so used to traveling and being on a plane every weekend and just being away that there's no way I could clock in and clock out, and
Yeah.
wear a suit and tie. And I mean, not that I like wearing suit and tie anyways, you know what I mean? Or not having a beer at work, because it's so not me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe give us a little insight. So what's your typical week like, Monday through Monday to Monday?
Well, Mondays are usually my recovery days. I usually am at home trying to do as very little as possible. Tuesdays I have training out at the wrestling school. So I'm out there. Training's from 5 to 8, but I usually get out there a little bit earlier to open up the school. I'm sorry, 6 to 8. I'm usually out there around 5-ish, 4:35 to open up the school. And if, I want to keep my ring cardio up, so I'll kind of get my little workout in. Wednesdays and Thursdays are also, training days. Lately, my wife has been trying to lose some weight. She wants to have a surgery, so I've been with her. So we've been hitting 2-a-days at the gym. Get up, 9 o'clock in the morning, hit the gym right away. Go to camp, do the camp, then after the camp, hit the gym again. So that's usually Monday through Thursday. And then either Thursday nights or Friday mornings is when I leave, depending where I'm going in the nation. Like, for instance, this week is Friday morning. I leave at 6 in the morning. I'm flying out to, where am I, New Hampshire? Yeah, I'm in New Hampshire. So that's Friday. Then Saturday, I'm in Massachusetts. Sunday, Ring of Honor's in Baltimore. But I'm actually not on that show, so I'll fly home Sunday night. And get home Sunday. Then, like I said, Monday's usually a recharge day. It all depends too. Summertime's busier, where I'll be on the road from like Wednesday till Sunday, or sometimes Wednesday to Monday. It all depends on what the shows are going on. Like we have a World of Worlds tour, which is usually it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday shot. I think this year it's a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday shot. Oh, that's right. We have Saturday off, so Sunday. So I won't be home till Monday that week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really cool, because I know you'll talk to a lot of guys and they'll kind of, miss the old territory days, so to speak, when, you could have, so many guys could make a living out of wrestling. And I think, a guy like you just goes to show that you can still do that. You can still make a living at wrestling, and
Yep.
You don't have to be, headlining WrestleMania to do it. There's a lot of different avenues that you can go through to, to reach your goals and to make a living out of this business.
And I got lucky too, because when Trevor Adonis, which most of you guys all know him.
Yeah.
He, the first time, through his course of training me, not only is he teaching me in ring, but he taught me how to break down a payday. Like obviously when you start out and you're only making $10, $20, you can't really do it. But he's like, you need to take a quarter of the money and set aside for savings, a quarter for taxes, take a quarter to eat on and a quarter to send to the family, you know? So now that I'm actually making money with it, we break my checks down that way. You know what I mean? And then, you know, on top of that, you have all your merchandise, which is great because that's all just like cream. You know, it's all that's money you're not expecting. But I'll still break it down where, okay, you know, maybe I made $100 this week. I'm only going to spend 20 of it on myself because the other 80 of it, I'm going to, you know, I got to buy new gear, buy new boots or something. You know what I mean? And I thank Trevor for that, breaking that down for me, because now I'm able to make a living, you know. And I try to teach the students at the den that, like, you guys are not making money now, but you will be. And if you save your money while you're doing it, you'll be able to make a living. You know, it can be a job. But on the flip side, when you're an indie guy, you also have to go out of your way and promote yourself, and you have to contact promoters, and you have to, you know, it's constant go, go, go. You know, when I'm at home on my day off, I'm usually emailing promoters trying to find out, okay, I'm only booked, like right now I'm only booked till June. So I'm trying to find out July through September bookings. You know what I mean? Because you got to constantly keep filling that tank. You know, it's not like,
No, absolutely.
like, yeah, I have my paycheck from Ring of Honor, but I want my indie money too, you know, until I sign an exclusive deal. I got to get that, you know, and plus I hate having off. I don't know what normal people do. I've been doing this for so long. I don't know what's normal. You know, like taking the wife to dinner is weird. You know, it's like, okay, now what do we do? Oh, we're going home. It's 9 o'clock and you want to go to bed? Oh, okay. You know, it's weird.
Well, that's good that you say that about the money, because it is really grippy. That microphone is grippy, man.
This guy almost botched the microphone. What else is new?
But no, it's funny that you say that about money and, you know, saving it, because there's, you know, you guys all saw it too. Like, they get their payday, they go right into the bar, and then they spend their payday right there at the bar. So,
Yeah,
you know,
and
it's
you know
good that
what?
you're teaching the kids that, hey, you got to save some of this.
I'm not saying don't go to the bar afterwards. Hell, I made a living going to the bar, you know.
That's your
But the thing
gimmick.
is, exactly, there's fans that would love to have a beer with you. Let that fan buy you a beer. I had a student the other day, because now that I do my entrance from the bar, I'm in the bar pretty much until my match. And a student was there, and a guy goes, "Man, I loved your match. I'd love to buy you a beer." He goes, "Oh no, that's okay. I'll buy it." I go, "No, he's, you know, because fans, they like, that's a moment for them, because they know if they buy you that beer, they're gonna get a couple minutes of talking to you. You know what I mean? And that makes an experience for that fan. You know, like I have fans all the time that want to drink with the Beer City Bruiser, and I'm all for it. You know, I'll sit and tell you stories. You know, if I'm getting a beer out of it, cool. You know, I don't mind meeting new people. You know, and it's,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, you can still go to the bar and have a good time and not spend money.
No, for sure. And you
Yep.
and you touched on it a little bit earlier about, you know, about self promotion, and how huge that is, because, you know, like we kind of talked about, you can be the biggest talent in the world, but if nobody knows about you, you're not going anywhere. And I think, you know, when you and I were coming up, kind of the big names around the indies were the AJ Styles, the Christopher Daniels, the Samoa Joes. Like, I mean, you had heard about those guys before you ever even saw them work. And it was just kind of interesting how that word of mouth kind of traveled. And yeah, it's the proof. I think you're seeing it right now where, you know, self promotion and getting yourself out there, and obviously being a top level talent helps too, you know, but it, you know, definitely pays that. You've got to put in the legwork, and just like anything, nobody's going to hand you anything in this business. You know, a lot of guys, you know, you were talking about, you know, Trevor and money and stuff like that. And, you know, Horace up in Minnesota, Horace Psychopath, he always had some really good stories about saving money and being on the road. Cause, you know, he was kind of back in what I guess would kind of be the tail end of some of the territory stuff and some of the Japan stuff. And he had some great stories too, but again, you know, it's all about self-promotion, and you are the product. You have to sell yourself.
And we broke in before the internet was big. You know what I mean? So think about it.
Yeah.
And Samoa.
There's like message boards, and, you know.
Yeah, like they all made a name.
Tape trading.
Yeah, they all made a name tape trading. And nowadays, like I think CM Punk was really the first internet star, you know, where the internet talked about him all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like it's so easy right now to go on Facebook, to create a fan page and then share it. You know what I mean? Go on Instagram, take a couple pictures and post it, you know. open a pro wrestling tee store and then just share it every once in a while. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy now to promote yourself. I don't get why more people aren't doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like all the tools are right there in front of you, and again, you have the internet now, and that's been a theme, I think, with our last couple of guests, where how the internet and social media has changed, so many different things. I mean, obviously it has. Everybody knows that. That'd be a broken record, but you can really see the differences in many things on how it's changed it, how it's made things easier. And then, and sometimes you're still shaking your head, like, what are you doing, kid? Which way you gonna go here? You happy just every Saturday going up to the same bar and wrestling in front of the same crowd with the same guys you've done it 100 times, or are you going to try to go somewhere,
Well, and with the thing that I don't get, like, I always, first day a student comes in, I go, what's your goals? Is this a hobby or is this going to be a profession? Because if it's someone's hobby, all the power to them. If they're honest with me right off the bat that they only want to be a weekend warrior, they want to get away from the wife for a couple hours, and they want to, it's like their volleyball league, cool. I will train them the same way and I will help them,
Mm-hmm.
But if it's your career, you should be doing everything you possibly can to make it to that next level. Why are you abusing your body? Bumps hurt. Hitting the ropes hurts. Why are you doing this? Like you said, going up to a bar in front of 40 people and not getting, you know what I mean? That doesn't, it blows my mind. And now you have all this time to the internet. You can promote yourself and get to that next level. All it takes is you doing it. Why not do it?
Yeah.
I personally hate the social media stuff. I think it's stupid, but I know for me to be successful, I need it,
Yeah, you got to use it. Yep.
Yeah. When my contract was coming up last year with Ring of Honor, WWE was reaching out to me and talking and stuff. And both Ring of Honor and WWE both said to me, create a buzz about yourself. And I remember looking at my 16-year-old daughter going, what does that mean? Like,
how do I do this?
Creating a buzz back in the day was you streaked on the field or you stabbed somebody, like, I don't know what this is. And so they helped me create like little Merry Christmas videos and Happy New Year videos. No, I'm the Beer City Bruiser and I'm at the bar, and just sharing them because now people start talking about you. And I was like, oh, okay, I get that now. And that's why we have it's called a bod squad check-in. And the reason we do that is to keep us all accountable for working out in the gym and making ourselves look good and keeping in shape, and it's actually catching traction where fans are actually jumping in on it. And they all are apologizing. I says, no, we're doing this as a positive reinforcement. If it's making your life better, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives, and I think it allows that real connection with, fans and stars that, wasn't there before. I mean, back in the early 80s, you couldn't, send out a tweet and have Ric Flair respond to it. I mean, God knows it would have been fantastic, but it's so different now,
Yeah.
Oh, there's Rick leaving with another alien.
So, Matt, kind of a thing that we have here on the podcast, too, is some pet peeves. So what are some pet peeves of the Beer City Bruiser? And you've been on the road a lot, so I'm sure you've seen just a ton of shit. But whether it be just personally in the scene of wrestling, on an airplane.
Swear on the podcast.
Oh.
Green kids? No, Dave said shit before in his story.
Okay.
So we got shit, fuck, heck, we got it going.
I got a lot of pet peeves actually. Like, for my number one pet peeve is when you're on a plane and the plane lands, don't stand up. You're not going anywhere.
Oh, I'm right there with you, man. I hate that.
What about if they clap to be like, hey, you landed?
Yeah, like, cool. Thanks for saving our lives, pilot, that you do every single day, that you went to college for and education. Thanks for keeping us safe, Like, just stay in your seat. Like, I had a guy the other day who I was in the aisle seat and he was in the window. He's like, "Oh, do you mind moving?" I said, "Yeah, I do." Where are you going? Well, I need to stretch. I'm like, you can wait because I need to stretch too, and I'm 200 pounds heavier than you.
Mm-hmm.
Sit your ass down. Wait till it gets to our turn, and then I'll let you out. It's not hard.
Yeah, this guy's going to like a flooring what the expo or something, and you just got done, taking 30 bumps or something over the past weekend,
Yeah, flying home on like a Monday or a Thursday are completely different than flying home on the weekend because that's when all the business guys fly. and oh God, they're so annoying. You know what I mean? Like constantly on their phones. They think their stuff is only important stuff. Like, yeah, I might be in a sweatshirt, cut off t-shirt with headphones on, but I'm going someplace for my job too. And if our plane's delayed, I'm just as upset as you are. But us yelling at each other isn't going to make the plane come any faster. You know,
This is unacceptable. I got to get there now.
yeah. When we land, you getting out of your seat's not going to make us taxi as fast. It's not like the pilot's looking in the rearview mirror and goes, "Oh, Jim Bob in 8E, he's standing up. We better get there. Sit down. Enjoy the rest of the flight." You know.
Stop speeding, but it's for Jim Bob. It's an important meeting.
God. So annoying. Like that's one of my biggest pet peeves is that. A couple other ones is like guys that are on indie shows and like they walk up to you like they're your best friend. Like, okay, yeah, you see me on TV, but I don't really need to know. I don't know that much about you. And then when you tell me my whole life history, I lived it. So I know it. Like, I'm glad you're a fan of mine. That's awesome, you know, and it's great.
Andrew apologizes for that, by the way.
I could see you like staring at me the whole time you're telling this story.
Yeah, he heard Cudahy and he was trying to narrow it down.
You
know, that's why they invented the toothbrush.
Anywhere else than called the teeth brush.
A really funny story about this. So last weekend or 2 weekends ago was the pay-per-view in Vegas. It's the 17th anniversary, and my parents live in Phoenix, so it's only like a 5-hour drive, and they hadn't seen me in a while, so they drove to Vegas to watch me in these shows. And we're at TV, and I had 2 matches on that TV taping. And, you know, TV tapings are long. You know, we're usually there. Call time's usually like 1, and then we don't get out of there until like 11 or 12. You know, and we don't have catering, so you know how that is. So the show gets done, and my dad texts me. He's like, "You have time to see your mother and I?" I says, "Oh yeah, come around to the back. You know, I'll sneak you into the back and you know, say goodbye and whatnot." And he's like, "Oh no, you got to come out to the front. There's this lady, a friend of mine wants to meet you." And I was like, "A friend? Like that's weird. Like, why is there my dad? Man, okay, so whatever." So we go out by the merch table, me and Malonis, and my dad's there, and he's like, "Oh, this is so and so. They're from wherever. They know everything about you. Can you take a picture with them?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, 'cause I'm not gonna be a dick, you know." Well, now all of a sudden the fans are starting to come out of the venue, and they see this couple taking a picture with us. So now it's like, "Oh, hey." So, you know, now I have a line of people, and my dad's off on the side going, "Yep, if you need pictures with the Bruiser, just line up right here. He's my son. He'll help you out." And I'm looking at my dad like, "Dad, stop. Like, I just want to go to I'm sore. I'm beat up. I want to go to the hotel room. I want to drink
$3 a picture, just pay me."
Well, and we had a meet and greet that day, and we had a real successful meet and greet where now people are paying money to do this for us. And I'm trying to explain to my dad, like, you know, this is $10 a pop right here, Pops. You know, like this money going out of my pocket. He's like, "But you're my son. It's okay." It's like, no. So about an hour later, I finally get back to my room. My dad's there, and I go, "Dad, please don't." He goes, "But it was so weird. She knew everything. She knew stuff about you I didn't even know about. And I'm your father."
That's great. You're taking pictures with him. After this, he'll help you load your groceries into your car. He'll take you back to your hotel room.
Yeah. And my dad's like, "Well, do you normally have dinner with fans?" I'm like, "No."
No, not usually.
Absolutely not.
He's like, "Well, I remember you wrestling at, you know, the Knights of Columbus for Bruce City. You were friends with everybody." You go, "Yeah, Dad, that's because there's 25 people there. Like, of course I'm friends with everybody. You know, I'm Ring of Honor. There's 1,000 people out there, and they all want to take my picture."
So Matt, you were the first one to come up to me and be like, and this I hope rings a bell for you. You were like, "Hey, Damone, so who's your favorite superhero?" And this is just before you and I had our match. You're like, "Who's your favorite superhero?" I'm like, "Oh, Batman, hands down." Bruce Wayne? You're like, "Fantastic. We'll see you out there." I'm like, whoa, what's that mean? He's like, "Don't worry about it, Damone. I'll see you out there. You got your stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, but what does that mean?" You're like, "Damone, calm down, man. I'll just see you out there." And you walked off so I could stop asking you. And then 30 seconds into the match, shh, whack, just a double handprint, fingers everywhere that looked exactly like a bat. So,
yeah.
do you still introduce that to any of your students, anyone on the indie scene, maybe even ROH?
To this day, it still happens. To this day. Yep. There's a lot of people I've gotten the Batman. A lot of people. Oh yeah, I keep that in there. For some reason nowadays, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I've noticed people are getting upset that chops. Like, oh, you shouldn't be chopping green students that much, or you shouldn't be, they shouldn't be doing this. Ric Flair never chopped anybody that much. Like, it's wrestling. Like, chops are what make it legitimate. Like, everyone out there knows we're fake fighting. But when they hear a chop, they'll be like, oh, okay, wait a minute. That was real. And you see the handprint, you know what I mean? Like, I don't get that. So, like, someone goes, well, you really shouldn't do the Batman to people anymore. And I asked why. And they said, well, it hurts them. I said, I guarantee you that doesn't hurt as much as me hitting him in the head with a steel chair.
Yeah, because it was my second battle royal. I had the pleasure of being in the ring with you, and I also got the Batman chop. You didn't tell me any of this in beforehand, but that's how that goes. But so when you gave me the chop, I hunched over like, oh, that hurt, to sell it, and you're like, oh, hey, look, he gave me his back, and right on my back. And I'm like, oh, this is me great. And then just whack across the face. And I just fell to the ground. I'm like, oh, what did I get myself into?
See, I just shows how green he was. He fell to the ground in a battle royal. What the hell's wrong with this guy? You try to shoot him off the ropes next or what?
I had to sell the slap in the face, man.
In fact, I think in my next two TV matches, I do the Batman. So pay attention. Yeah.
Set your DVD, ladies and gentlemen.
I did have one battle royal where I pulled a kid in the corner. I said, who's your favorite superhero? And he goes, Shazam. I said, you suck. Here's Batman. You like Shazam?
What? How is Shazam your favorite superhero?
Didn't they just make that guy up?
It's like, come on, you're lying.
Oh, there's so many better ones.
Yeah, so Winchester, you could probably back me up on this. Quinn rags on me for being a big Dark Knight fan, and if I'm correct, you are a big Joker fan. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, Heath Ledger's Joker's the best Joker out there.
Okay, please tell Quinn why.
Hey, well, before we get into that, let me clarify. Okay, every time the three of us have seen the same movie, right? Pick whatever it is. Whatever. It could be, what did I watch last night? The Fast and the Furious. Big surprise. Escape Plan 2, whatever it might be. Anyway.
Caspian Batista.
Anyway, so every time the three of us see a movie, I'll be like, hey, Dave, what'd you think of this movie? Nah, pretty good. Dark Knight was better. That's exactly how it goes.
Yeah, but I agree.
Oh, it's no Dark Knight, guys.
If you're watching Fast and the Furious, like, Sundays just turn on NASCAR. It's the same thing minus Vin Diesel.
No. That's for Formula One. And I'm glad you brought that up because I've got a 2-hour segment. We're going to do it.
All right. That's enough of that.
Quinn, if you did that segment, it'd be a Paul Walker and it'd probably crash and burn.
This guy. Wow.
Too soon?
Jeez, just like Blackheart Dave over here that thought he should have died at the end of 7 instead of driving off into the sunset. Oh, 2 minutes after Quinn and I are wiping some liquids off of our eyes, Dave's like, they should have had him die at the end.
Whoa!
See, I knew that being from Heartland, you had a black heart. I should have took you out back in the day when I first found out we were high school rivals.
Now that is a fantastic story. To this day, I still tell everybody. But I found out on the younger generation, it kind of gets lost. And here's why. So for the people that don't know, Quinn and I had been friends when we first started wrestling. And we were supposed to wrestle each other on an ACW show at the Nini Performance Center for good old Jason Jerry. And somehow we got on the subject of high school sports. Now, Quinn went to McWanago High School, and I went to Heartland Arrowhead. And in the southeastern Wisconsin area, that's a notorious rivalry where the two schools just hate each other. So I said, I played for the Arrowhead. And he says, I played for McWanago. And there's a good 15-second pause between the two of us. And it was like that scene from Batman Returns where Batman finds out Catwoman's Catwoman and she finds out he's Batman. And they go, well, do we start fighting now or what? So we did that. And I bring that up, and somebody will look at me and goes, like, I told a student that the other day, and they're like, what's Batman Returns? I'll be like, come on!
Oh,
Oh my God.
And
so
we
how many
actually-
chops did he get?
Oh, God, yeah. It was Batman's all night long.
And I do remember we actually looked at each other and did say those words. So what do we do now? Fight?
We didn't know what to do.
I've been brainwashed for 12 years that you're the enemy. I mean, it'd be like the Germans meeting the Polish.
Exactly. Like, what happens in that situation?
You both go up separately to Jerry. Yeah, we can't wrestle tonight. Why? Because there'll be a real fight in the ring.
Oh,
Yeah, but
boy.
Jason Jerry would have loved that. You know him.
Oh yeah, Jason would have been all for that.
Anything to make money.
Yep.
So another little quick story, because I feel like we have just so many with you. Mr. Jim Neidhart, rest in peace, Jim, and rest in peace, Trevor. I didn't get to see that yet. You gave me the opportunity with Brandon Blaze, the late great Brandon Blaze,
Number 2.
number 2.
Everybody knows.
And so anyway, you come up to me and you're like, you're working. You and Brandon are working tonight against Jim and you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, thank you for having that kind of confidence in me. And then Jim Manville comes in and we all get together and Jim kind of put his focus on me. He's like, so Damone, how do you punch? And I didn't have my style of punches down yet. And you look at me like you knew I didn't, and you were laughing. And Jim's like, hit me. I'm like, hit you? And he's like, yeah, hit me. So I did the stone cold punch, the worst stone cold punch you could ever think of. And he's like, fuck, nope, don't you fucking do that. I'm like, okay, sir, what do you want? He's like, you know how Hogan threw a punch, right? He'd hit the back of the hand. Watch this, kid. And he just, he did it. And he's like, if you're going to throw a punch at me, that's what you're going to do. I'm like, yes, sir. And then you come over. He's like, oh, Damone, you're in for tonight. I'm like, yeah, thanks, Winchester. And then as the night goes on, Jim pulls me aside. He's like, all right, kid, I'm going to do this thing. You're going to do that thing. Do you have any other kind of things you do? I'm like, nope. And he's like, all right, well, I'll do this thing. And then I'll do the Davey Boy Smith thing. And you were right there, the whole kind of right there. And he's like, one more thing I'll do, and then we'll call it a night. You cool with that? I'm like, yeah.
Again, he was very confident.
And I look at you. I'm like, hey, Matt, I know I'm green. What the hell did he just say? And you pull me, and you're like, brother, I don't know. Like, thank God, a veteran guy didn't even know what he was saying. So I feel all right. And then that's Matt.
Everything he said to you, he used the person's name who gave the move. Like, for instance, he said, I'll give you the Davey Boy thing. Davey Boy has like 5 or 6 moves known to his name, so I don't know which particular move he's going to do to you.
I know. And then I went up to him. I'm like, hey, before we go out there, what's the Davey thing? He's like, oh, well, you grab my wrist, I grab your hair, and I backdrop you. I'm like, perfect. I'll get it.
See, I would have thought power slam, but that's just me.
Well, that's what was going through my head. And I mentioned that to Matt. I'm like, does he mean the power slam? He's like, dude, you better go ask.
Like I said, like he's known for like 5 or 6 things. And plus, Neidhart broke in with him. There's stuff we probably don't even know about that Davey.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. So that, to me, that was always just one of the highlights. And I got to thank you for giving me that highlight, because that was fun.
I have 2 highlights from that match. The first being, I believe it was Jim was holding you, and I chopped you so hard that it knocked Jim over. And he went,
yes, that's
and
right.
He went, do it again, and Damone goes, please don't.
Dude, that one rocked. I'm not gonna lie, that one rocked.
And then I remember you and I doing the double down, and me crawling for the hot tag, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart getting so excited that he fell off the apron.
Oh my God.
And you went, what do we do now? I said, grab a hold, I'll figure it out.
Well, literally just before we went out the curtain, Brandon, he goes to me, he's like, you ready, kid? I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm ready. You ready? He's like, yeah, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to prank Jim so hard, just before I tag you in, Damone, I'm going to tell him I fucked his daughter. I'm like, don't do that, Brandon. Don't do that. And then he ran out the curtain. I'm like, Brandon, I'm going to die.
Yep. Oh, glad to see Brandon hasn't changed in all the years.
So just a little story I had to get out there because that was great.
Yeah, for me, that one ranks right up there where I think you did your first show for Dysfunction. This is for Diamond Dave.
Corporal?
And
Oh my God.
And Dis puts him in the ring with Corporal Robinson. I had
Yep. I was there for that show.
Hell yeah.
No. Well, it's funny because I think Winchester was there for that one. All you veteran guys, I'm like, so what do I do with Corp? Because Corp he's like, well, how long you been in? And I told him, I'm green. He's like, okay, how many matches you had? I'm like, I think 20 at this point. All right, well, here's the finish. I'm like, okay, do you want to go over anything else? He's like, nah, I got it out there. I'm like, oh, shit. So then I just kept going to all the, Quinn and all you guys, and they're like, yeah, just talk to Corp.
He'll tell you what to do. Just listen.
I've done that. One of my students, we were in a fair loop, and it was the second fair show of the day. And the first fair show drew okay, but not like a normal fair show, because fair shows are hit or miss. Either they draw really well or they don't draw at all. And the first one was kind of that right in the middle area. You're like, okay, maybe I'll take a bump. I don't know. But the second show, it was filled. I mean, there was people everywhere. And I told the kid walks up and he's like, what do you want to do? I says, you know what? There's not that many people out there. How about I just call it in the ring? And he goes, okay. And then he peeked through the curtain. He came back. He goes, wait, you said there's not that many people. And I go, kid, I'm on TV every week. That's not And he walks away. Brandon Blaze walks up to me and goes, you never say that. You're such an asshole. Like, hey, we got to rip the kids every once in a while.
Nothing wrong with big timing them every now and then.
Yeah. And then I remember in that match, I slammed him. I slammed him on the ground, turned his head, said, watch your face, and I climbed up to the top rope. So the kid's just laying there like, yeah. I eventually hit the frog splash, but I said, what was going through your head? He's like, I thought you were going to...
Oh, you cut out there for a second, Matt. Jesus. Say the punchline again.
Oh, hold on. My speaker just went off. Oh, hold on.
Greatness of the podcast.
What?
Technology.
Oh, I was telling you, hit the
sucks.
punchline again.
We got you.
Oh, there you are.
How's that? Better?
That's good. Okay, so where you were was you climbed up on the top ropes. You eventually hit him with the frog splash. You asked him what was going through his mind, and he said...
Oh, he said that he thought I was going to sit on his face. So I said to the kid after, I said, kid, I'm a professional. I'm not going to hurt you in the ring. It's just all good fun.
Yeah, that might put a damper on some of your bookings if you start legitimately hurting people. That tends to hurt a little.
I see, and that's another thing I don't get when people, I'm a snug style, but I'm not out there to hurt you. You know what I mean? We all got families to go home to. We all got, wives and girlfriends and boyfriends and all that. I'm not going to hurt you. Just don't hurt me.
No, I can contest to that. There was a match that you were watching between Sadist and myself, and I almost botched a overhead suplex, and I ducked my head at very last second, and Steve and I were all giddy. We're coming to the back. We're like, yeah, we did so great. And you were the first one to approach us. You're like, great job, but watch your fucking safety. You got in our face about it. You're like, you guys were completely unsafe on that move and laid into us on it. And we were like, whoa. And we had no idea. And you're just like, I'm not trying to be a dick, guys, but safety, safety, safety. Damone, you could have just broke your neck. And I was like,
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Safety is number one. That's what we teach at the Thumpers Den. I always tell the kids, I'm going to teach you how to protect yourself and protect the other guy. It's going to look good, but you got to protect, because injuries happen on just the littlest, stupidest things. I tore my tricep taking a DDT. I blew out my knee just giving a big boot. You know what I mean? I took a hip toss and hurt my back. These are little moves. You know what I mean? You can't predict you're going to get hurt. You know what I mean? But you can prevent it as best as possible. And that's the other cool thing about Ring of Honor is they care about our safety so much, where I've had a couple fight without honors, which are basically no DQ matches. And as soon as you walk to the curtain, there's Joe Koff, who's the president of the company. There's Hunter, who's the booker, and then the agent. And all three of them are there making sure you're okay. And they don't have to do that. You know what I mean? How many indies do you work where promoters even come check on you if you hard way, you know? With us, you know, they're right there and they're making sure you're okay. They're making sure if you need a doctor, they're, you know, everything. And you feel really valued, you know, because it's like, oh, cool. I just put my life on the line and they actually appreciate it, you know? But like when you're on the indies and stuff, man, like just protect yourself. You got to either have a show the next day or you got to get up and do something, you know?
Yeah, and I guess two things that I wanted to hit on real quick that you brought them up was I agree with you 100%. Okay, strong style is one thing when the match calls for it and there's a huge buildup. But if the only way you can get over is by literally beating the shit out of the guy who's in there with you, trusting his life with you, you just ain't got it, pal. Like Jerry Lynn used to always say, I'm giving you my face. Could you please be careful with it? You know, type
Exactly.
of thing. And I just never understood, like, the way I'm going to get over is by, stiffing you, basically. Like, brother, if you want to make this a fucking fight, we can fight and see how it goes. See how your tacky kicks do, you know?
Well, and I always tell the people, like, I'll give it to you, but I expect it back. If I chop you, chop me back. You know what I mean? Like, if my forearm's a little snug, give me one back. Like, I'm not the type of guy where I'm just gonna rough you up and then you snug me one little second. I go and complain on the internet. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, you're gonna feel you work me the next day, but like I expect that in return because the fans benefit. As long as you're not hurting me, you're not physically on purpose hurting me. I'm okay with it. You know.
Yeah.
And then
I guess
I got my students. It's funny, my students now, because now they're on the road and stuff. They did a couple shows up north in the Green Bay area, and they get back and they say, "We have a question." I said, "Yeah, what's that?" They said, "How do you sell something if you don't feel it?" I go, "What do you mean?" Because well, they were punching me and they weren't even touching. I don't feel it. And I said, "Well, what were you doing?" They're like, "Well, we felt bad, just kind of giving them the way we normally give them." I said, "Don't feel bad. Make them work to your level. You know, like, the fans get it."
Yeah, like this is wrestling, kids. This is how it's going to be, you know?
Yep, exactly.
And to kind of piggyback off that, you touched on it just briefly here. I think you've been relatively lucky in terms of injuries. Have you, I guess, kind of running through your history? Because like I said, I know you were the first guy out there to not recklessly put his body on the line, but was more than willing to put his body on the line when it made sense, to have a good show, to tell a good story, to really give the fans something. How's that style kind of worked with you? What have you done to kind of prolong your career, as far as flexibility and things like that?
Well, keep going. Sorry.
Oh yeah, and just saying, like, kind of where is that taking you as far as, the type of injuries you've had, what you've done to prevent them, and how you've kind of been able to prolong your career and keep working at a high level.
Well, my style's changed over the years. Now doing all the high risk stuff is more meant for like the high profile matches. Like TV, pay-per-view and stuff like that. I'll do the older style, but it's also I learned to make everything make sense. I enjoy teasing stuff now so that when I finally do something where my body's put on the line, it's like a big pop from the crowd. It's not like just doing it to do it. As far as injuries, I've torn my left tricep, torn my left ACL, had surgeries on both those, numerous stitches and staples throughout my body. Herniated disc in my back, my sciatica's been screwed up, my right hip, is all messed up. No front teeth, obviously. What I've been doing though is as I get older, I go to the gym and I change my lifting style because I came from a football background. So it was always, and I was always like, 'cause my birthday's in July, I was always the smallest guy on the team. So it was always lift as heavy as you can, as much as you can, and get as big as you can. That's okay when you're 18, 19, 20. But now that I'm, 40, it's more about flexibility and a lot of cardio, a lot of circuit training. I threw in some yoga. I met DDP on the Chris Jericho cruise, and he talked me into doing his yoga, and by God, it works.
Yep, that's what everybody says, is that it's life changing.
Yeah, when he pitched it to me and stuff, and he gave me the I got a lifetime membership and all that, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a try, because I don't want this. I mean, it's a gift from a vet. I'm not gonna let it go to waste. And my wife and I, we incorporate it into our workouts, and I feel better, because it's flexibility and it's core training and stuff like that. So I'm able to put some more years on my body, Obviously everybody has a bump card that you don't think about when you're young. I do regret some of the big bumps I've taken in the past, because I feel them today. But overall, health wise, I'm feeling pretty good. And I think it's because of the change in the workout, the change in the diet, I eat better for myself, especially when I'm on the road.
Switch to a light beer.
I do drink light beer, but the funny thing is, I'll drink any kind of beer. That's the best thing about it. Like, I love going to these new towns. I have this thing now where I go to these new towns and I'll find a local brewery, and I'll make sure the promoter brings me in early enough where I can go to the brewery, or flies me out later on where I can go, because I want to experience. When you're on the road, you get so little time to like see things. It's usually just airport, rental car, hotel, venue, rental car, hotel, airport. So when I do these indie shows, I try to get a little more freedom. Like, hey, can you fly me out, like a 3:00 flight? And then, at 11, let's go to this local brewery, and so I can sample all the local beer, And I love doing that, because I get to find out all these, like what's local and what's great. And it's helping local business, which I'm a big, supporter of, and get to find different things to drink,
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely gives you a benefit to going to the city or the town. And, aside from just the wrestling, you can actually say, hey, I went to somewhere in Tennessee and I actually remember it. It was something memorable that I saw.
Yeah. And it's, I can always recommend stuff when I'm in town, and like everyone always asks, oh, what are you drinking when you come to the ring? And normally it's Miller Lite, but if I find a really good local brewery, I'll ask them for a 6-pack or 12-pack, and they normally give it to me, and then I can take it out. And then I used to do that with cigars too, where I'd find a cigar place to get cigars from. And now there's a group called the Martinez Cigar Company in New York. And starting in April, they're releasing a Beer City Bruiser blend of a cigar.
No kidding.
So MartinezCigarCompany.com, you can go on there, you can order some BCB cigars, and they taste good.
For his victory cigars.
Yeah, I'll use those for every Packer season, that for every game they're going to win next season. Oh, this is perfect.
He'll take 19.
So WrestleMania weekend, they're launching them, and I got to do an autograph signing at their shop. But it was all because I do this little thing with, because like I said, I believe in small business. Small business is what make the world go round. And if I can help out a local brewery and bring some more people to drink their beer, especially if it's good beer,
Absolutely.
So I was just kind of wondering, maybe it's my fault for not doing enough to look it up or anything, but for the Chris Jericho cruise, you were on the first Jericho cruise, and he's coming back with number 2. I was wondering if you had any kind of, memorable moments for yourself being on that cruise.
That whole cruise was memorable. It was a life change. It was so amazing. If you got time, I got plenty of stories, but I'll tell some of my top few. So my top story is, I don't know if Andrew, if Dave, you know this, but Quinn knows this. Mick Foley has always been a big inspiration in my career. Okay. And I've never met him. I never met him for the last 19 years now. I've never met him, and they announced him for the cruise and stuff, and I was real excited, because it's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna meet Foley, I'm gonna talk to him and all that. And so I get on when we get on the cruise, we got these talent badges, which is basically all access for us, where we can go wherever we want. They had a talent lounge that we could go to, which was really cool, because you could spend time with the fans, but then if you needed to get away, like if you're overwhelmed, or you just need a little bit of time yourself, you can go to the artist lounge, and it was just talent that was in there, the bands and the wrestlers and stuff. So It was really cool, where they made sure that we had our space too. And so, the first day you're in there and you see everyone that's going to be on the cruise, and I'm looking around, and Jay Lethal, who knew I was a big fan of Foley, goes, "You're looking for Mick, aren't you?" I says, "Yeah, man. Like, it's kind of like I have a hidden agenda where I want to meet him and stuff. And he goes, well, don't worry, he's on the boat. He texted me. They had all the names had like Jericho and all them all had their own little balcony or deck. They had the 14th deck all themselves. So he was up there. So okay. So just did my thing, and then I saw he was doing his comedy special, and I was like, well, I'm going to go to the comedy special. And with our VIP passes, we get backstage. So I was going to go backstage and meet him and stuff. And when I got there, they had moved his comedy special with a podcast because Foley wanted to watch wrestling. And now it hit me. I literally changed out of my wrestling, got done with my match, changed out of my wrestling gear to run across the boat to go to his comedy thing. And now they're telling me he didn't do his comedy thing because he was watching wrestling, and I just got done wrestling. Like, wait a minute. So I saw he was doing another one, and I ended up going to it, watching. It was a great comedy thing, and went backstage, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, cool, I'm going to meet him and all this. And Diamond Dallas Page was there, and I'd met him before. And he goes, oh, you're here to talk to Mick? I says, yeah, first time meeting him. He's like, oh, he's a great guy, but do you mind if we film something for DDP Yoga first? I says, no, go ahead, by all means. So they do their little video and stuff like that. And Dallas starts leaving. He says goodbye to me. And Foley walks up and he's signing autographs with the fans. And I'm just kind of chilling out like, okay. And in my head, I'm like, this is how I'm going to introduce myself. This is what I'm going to do. This is what, and I have like a speech prepared, So he turns around. He comes walking up. He's like, oh, Beer City Bruiser, how's it going? I'm a big fan of yours. And he shakes my hand and I go, like mouth ajar, just sitting there looking at him going, My name's
This isn't
Matt.
what I had planned.
My name's Matt. I'm the Beer City Bruiser. He goes, I know, I just said that. And I was like, And it's like, in my brain, I'm going, say something stupid. And it felt like an hour and like, oh my God, I'm just sitting here. And I said, well, thanks for everything you've done, and I kind of talked to him. And he goes, hey, I watched your match with the Briscoe brothers on TV. It was near perfection. I really like your work and looking forward to hanging out with you. And I'm a big fan of yours. And I was like, And I remember before it got all done, he goes, we're in the meet and greet tomorrow, same meet and greet. I says, yeah. He says, well, come meet me here and we'll walk to the meet and greet together. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I remember walking back to my cabin, kicking myself, going, man, you're such an idiot. Like, there's so much more you could have been.
Probably
so
thinks I'm a moron.
Yeah, it's like, could have been so much cooler to Mick Foley, and you weren't.
Total Chris Farley moment.
So then I did the meet and greet, and he was there, and it was a little bit better. And then I ran into Noelle, Frank the Clown's her boyfriend. He did something for Dysfunction a while back, and she was there, and I was talking to her because I got to know her on the cruise, and she's like, oh, hey, my dad says hi. He's a big fan of yours, and he doesn't think you're a moron. And I'm like, oh, cool, thanks so much.
Day made.
Look at that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was like the number one thing that happened to me that whole cruise was this. I got to be an idiot in front of Mick Foley, and he doesn't think I'm a moron, so I'm okay with it.
If the opportunity comes, are you going to be on cruise number 2?
No, as far as I know, we're not allowed to do that because AEW is doing it, and because All Elite is so fresh and new right now, they're rewriting our contract, the verbiage in our contracts, because I don't think we can. They haven't officially told us we're not allowed to wrestle for AEW, but all of us kind of get that vibe that because if they get TV, they'll probably be direct competition with us. So we don't know right now how that all works out. And I know with Jericho being part of All Elite, that's who they announced is doing the wrestling. So I'm going to say right now, no. But if the opportunity comes and I can be on the cruise again, I'd love to do it. It was totally awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that.
With the TV thing. I didn't think about that.
No.
Yeah, a lot of people ask us, because the Bucks left Ring of Honor and Cody, they all left Ring of Honor on a good note. It was a handshake and see you later. And the whole locker room still likes the guys. They weren't bad or bitter or anything when they left. You know what I mean? Like, we all knew they were going to do something. It was no secret. So when they announced it, everyone, with Ring of Honor, we were all like, okay, well, can we wrestle for them? Can we not? If the guys with the exclusive deals obviously can't because they're exclusive to Ring of Honor, but like a guy like me who's not exclusive yet can still I can do select indies. Like, is that considered an indie or not? You know what I mean? And then None of the office people have directly told us no, but we're all kind of figuring out if they get a TV deal, like it's probably going to be like an NXT or WWE thing where no, we're not allowed to go because we're not allowed to wrestle for WWE, NXT, Impact, because it's direct competition. And then we're not allowed to wrestle on like companies that air on Powerbomb TV or what is it called, Independent Wrestling TV now, I guess, because we're on the Fight Network. So it's all legality and stuff like that. Like.
Sure, they just gotta draw it out for you guys and be like, all right, here's what you can do, here's what you can't. I know you're not lawyers. Let me explain this to you.
Well, and when I get my contracts and stuff, like my first contract, I just signed right away. Like, okay, I got a contract, here we go. And then going through the negotiations for my second one was interesting because it's actually negotiations, and I'm not, you know how it is on the indies. You give a guy a price, he says no, and you're done. Here it was like, well, this is what I'm looking for, and then back and forth and all that. And then it's like, now you have like indie promoters like, hey, you're not exclusive. We want to use you. And you got to actually like find out about this indie company now, Yeah,
you got to do your research and see what their story is,
Yeah. So like, I always reach out to people that I know that work for there because being on the road and so much, you meet a lot of people. And we have extras and stuff like that too, just like WWE. So you get to know some local guys in the area. So you can always hit them up and like, hey, what's the deal with this company?
Oh, the tales of being extras. How we could go on for that for a whole nother podcast.
Oh,
Simon Dean.
Oh, and I see these guys. So we do not have a dress code at Ring of Honor. I mean, I show up how I am. I there's no dress code.
So you're telling me there's no army of guys showing up wearing black pants and blue shirts?
Well, when there's an extras, because the extras for some reason think we're like WWE, guess what they show up in? And I just remember I chuckle every time. And then you see them, in their little groups and they're talking and you walk by and they're all straight up and down. And I always try to crack a joke right away and just to make them feel at ease. You know what I mean? Because like, guys, you're here to make us look good, like like we're not like up there, in fact, my last time doing extra work for WWE is right before I signed my first contract with Ring of Honor, and I had to do the fake Bray Wyatt, and I remember showing up to the tapings thinking to myself like, well, I'm not getting a job, I'm just getting a good payday, going to Ring of Honor soon, so like, why do I need to take this as seriously as I used to? So I went out and bought the most obnoxious looking suit I could find with like the brightest like shirt I could find and the gnarly, like I looked like straight out of the 70s, and
Nice.
like that got more of a pop with the guys because I remember they offered me a tryout match, like, hey, you want to do a tryout? Like, we're going to fly you to Florida and do a tryout. And I was like, actually, I'm probably signing with Ring of Honor next week, so no. But had I known that years ago when we were the blue t-shirt, the blue dress shirt squad, I would have done that,
Oh, that's fantastic.
Well, one of the quick stories I had is I ran my first show in Chilton, and it was a benefit for Butch's Army, a guy that I worked with that passed away from lung cancer. And we had you on the show, and you did a great job with everything. You signed a mask for him, signed him a picture, and they actually had it when he eventually did pass away from cancer. They put it proudly on display at his funeral, was everything that you gave him that night. Cause they said they had a hell of a time with you. And then the other bow on that night is you brought a woman into the ring with your keg, having no idea that was my own mom.
Yeah, I remember saying that afterwards, and I felt really bad. You're like, no, she loves it. It's great. I'm like, okay.
Oh, of course. And everybody loved it. And then, like, even now my uncle, too, is like, hey, I was flipping through the channel, saw wrestling on the other night. That Beer City Bruiser guy with the cigar, he was on there. I watched it. Oh, man, he is a treat to watch. I'm going to watch every week now. So, like, yeah, just you doing a little show in Chilton, Wisconsin, and you pick up a couple more fans. But I did want to say, thank you for all you did at that show. It was great.
No, thank you. Like, I'm glad I'm able to do stuff like that, like especially with somebody like him whose real life kind of sucks, like he's fighting this battle. Like, I don't know what he's going. I can't imagine fighting a battle like that. but to give them, 2 to 3 hours of just not worrying about anything, not worrying about doctors or medicines or anything like that, and like to make them feel good I love wrestling for that. You know what I mean? Like, I try to make every show that I do a positive experience where people remember it, forever. Like, I remember my first wrestling experience. I remember Bruiser Brody and all that. It made such an impact on me that I want to do that with people too, in a positive way. And it's great hearing a story like that where at least, he was having this hard battle and stuff, but at least for the time that I was in the ring, he didn't think about anything, and he was happy, and he was, you know what I mean? Like, that's the cool thing about wrestling,
I do have to say you were his second favorite wrestler on the show.
Of course. Of course. I wouldn't expect it any other way. But then again, I am your mom's favorite wrestler, so that's okay.
Quinn is number one.
Oh, okay.
That's just because I was beating him up in front of his own mother and she loved it. But no, it is interesting how wrestling is so unique from any other type of entertainment in that, and especially on, whether it be the indies or, it's not so much WWE because there's like zero crowd interaction directly with the wrestlers. But that's one thing I always loved about wrestling was you had a direct interaction with the audience, and they almost felt like they were really drawn in and a part of the show. And I just think you don't get that in football, baseball, nothing else. You go to a movie, you're very passive, you're just watching it. But in wrestling, again, not at WWE, because there really is no
maybe
quote unquote working the crowd. Yeah, house shows are probably different, I suppose. But as far as what people see, and that's what I love about, so many of the smaller feds, I'll use the term smaller, is that you get to actually have that interaction with the people that is, really makes their experience. And, I mean, the same as I do. I mean, how many shows have you done where somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, this is the first wrestling show I ever went to. I just had such a great time. I was yelling and screaming and my kids had a blast." I mean, I swear that happens at like every show that, guys do. It's great.
Yeah. It's like I said, to have a positive influence on people. 'Cause, wrestling, when you hear wrestling and you're a normal person, like right away you get a negative connotation, because it's carny. It comes from the carnies, And then when you have someone come to a show that has that mentality, and then all of a sudden it changes, like, wow, this isn't so bad after all. It's like, cool, I did my job,
Yeah, you won them over.
Yeah, there was a story from I actually just found this out in Vegas. A girl. So my dad's doing the line of free photos for some reason. I'm walking
just
away
pimping his own son shamelessly.
Yeah, it's like,
He's
come on,
just
Dad.
counting the dollars.
Yeah, and he's just sitting there going, "I'm so proud of you." I'm like, "Well, good. Let's make money being proud of me." But anyways, this girl walks up to me and she had tears in her eyes, and I'm like, are you okay? And she goes, "I didn't want to bother you, but I want to tell you a story." And I says, "Okay, go ahead." And what's really cool is my mom was standing next to me, because my mom and I were having a conversation. This girl came up, so my mom got to hear this, and this is really cool. And she goes, "Well, my boyfriend and I were on the Jericho cruise, and it was one of the best times you ever had, and your matches were fantastic." And I said, "Oh, thanks. Like, I had a lot of fun. It was a great time." And she goes, "Well, I want to tell you about something that happened, but not to me." She says, after one of the shows, we were leaving, and she named the match it was a 4-way tag match, and the whole story was it was the third day of the cruise, and Silas, who was my partner, was sick and tired of me drinking during the matches, so he was going to ban alcohol during the match. This is a 4-way tag. And all the other tag teams were like, "Cool, we got the Bruiser, we're all just going to drink." So the whole thing was Silas against all of us, because Silas didn't want to party, and essentially the whole boat turns against Silas because you're on a cruise not to be sober.
Yeah.
And so the finish of the match is I bring a bucket of beer in, and we all share the beer, we toast it and all that. So she says they were leaving that, and there was an old man about 70 years old in an elevator, and he was like cupping this crushed beer can. And when they got in, he's like, "Oh, please don't knock this over. Please don't knock this over." And she goes, "Well, okay." He's like, I'm a 7-year-old man, and I've been watching wrestling for almost like 45 years, whatever it was, like a long time," he said. And he goes, "And I saw one of the best matches ever, and this is the can that Beer City Bruiser drank out of. I'm going to take it home and put it in glass." And and he is a true throwback to what true professional wrestling is. And he reminds me, I lost my wife last year, and this is one of the first times I'm ever happy, and I'm so happy this cruise happened. I'm so happy a guy like him was around. And like my mom starts crying, this girl starts crying. I'm almost about to cry, but I thanked her for telling me the story, and she walks away. And my mom's like, "Oh my God, did you know that?" And I said, "No, but that's what the cool thing about wrestling,
Yep.
That guy got to have that moment,
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, you just wonder how many times does that happen, and I bet it happens all the time. Guys have like going back, here we are going back to it, creating a moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be in a ring. It can be something like that happens,
Yeah, like he didn't say it was because of the mat. He said, "Oh, look, this is a beer. There was the last beer I had in the ring, and I threw it out in the crowd, and he caught it." Like,
that's awesome.
Which is, like to us, it's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, it's a beer can." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But to him, it's like, okay, and like to hear that he had such a hard time, and this helped him cope with that hard time. Like, it's cool. Like, wrestlers aren't
truly.
scumbags.
And then just
They're actually
any
really
time
cool.
he's having a hard time too, he can just look at that beer can and then it'll bring a smile back to his face. Like, yeah, I remember that moment.
Yeah, see, wrestlers aren't all about sending dick pics to rats.
Okay, our next topic: best city for rats. No,
well,
like
I'm a happily
scowl
married
from the
man. My
life.
wife can beat me, so I can't answer that.
We'll ask Scott Steiner about the rat in Sheboygan.
Oh, yeah, go ahead and hit the supercard.
So yeah, as we know your time is precious. So as we go on our go home here, I believe a show's coming up at a little place called Madison Square Garden. I don't think anyone's really heard of it, but so yeah, why don't you tell us what you got coming up here in the future, where people can see you and all that jazz?
Oh man, so. Well, starting before, I'll go the weekend before Madison Square Garden. I'm out in New Hampshire for Chaotic Wrestling, which is a school that is an offshoot of the Killer Kowalski School. This company produced such talent as my partner, Brian Malonis, referee Todd Sinclair, former NXT champion Tommaso Ciampa, Dijak, who's Dijakoff or something like that now?
Yeah, something like that.
He came from there. So I'm with them Friday night. Then I'm with Liberty States Wrestling in New Hampshire on Saturday. Then Ring of Honor's in Baltimore Sunday. And then the weekend that you're speaking of is a great Supercard of Honor. It's a G1 Supercard at Madison Square Garden. It's April 6th. I'm in the Honor Rumble, and I think I'm doing something else, but I don't know if I don't know what it is yet, basically. They're keeping it till we get there because they don't want the internet to leak out, I guess. I don't know. But
breaking news on the Bad Medicine podcast.
Don't worry, only 30 people will hear the secret plan.
Only two.
But I will be out there April 5th because we have the Festival of Honor, and that's kind of like our access. It's our fan thing. I'm actually going to be a guest on Dalton Castle's interview Q&A segment, and I'm going to be playing a beer pong tournament. So
nice.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. And then
getting paid to play beer pong. Look at that.
Exactly. Best time in the world. And then on April 6th, from noon to 2, I'm at Martinez Cigar Company as we're going to launch off the Beer City Bruiser cigars. It's going to be a meet and greet and samples of the cigars and stuff like that. And then, like I said, April 6th that night, we're at Madison Square Garden. And never thought, man, if you would have asked me, Quinn, when we were driving up to First Avenue to have Eddie Sharkey tell us he might have something for us, I'd tell you I'm wrestling Madison Square Garden. I wouldn't have believed it,
It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And you get to say live on pay-per-view from Madison Square Garden.
Yep. And it's going to be amazing. So Fight Network carries it. If you're part of the Honor Club, you get to watch it. The whole card's great. They just announced Okada versus Jay White for the New Japan, the IWGP heavyweight belt, which all the New Japan guys are just amazing guys. You have the three-way with Jay Lethal, Matt Taven, and Marty Scurll, the ladder match for the Ring of Honor title. Again, it's in the Garden, so.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
Dude, your adrenaline's going to be at top.
Yeah. Normally,
I guess there's been a couple.
pay-per-views, we normally turn it up anyways, but like for some reason the super card, because they just keep getting bigger and bigger each. This is my 4th super card with them, and each year it just keeps bigger and bigger. So there's more and more adrenaline and more, like crazy bumps. I last year it was where I took the bump through the table or off the top rope to the floor, trying to frog splash Jay Lethal, and he moved. That happened last year, and like I didn't feel it for a few days, but that's because that's how long it took the adrenaline to wear down. So I'm wondering how long it's going to take me to get off this high, Like,
Well, it's gonna be like 2 weeks.
Yeah, like it's the
You have a
garden, man.
broken leg and you're still wrestling like not even on a thing yet.
And how can our fans find you on the social media stuff?
On Twitter, I'm at BCB Winchester. On Facebook, I'm the Beer City Bruiser. And on Instagram, I'm the Beer City Bruiser. You can go to prowrestlingtees.com/Beer City Bruiser. I have 6 shirts up there right now. Or go to ROHwrestling.com, click on the shop. I have a Beer City Bruiser t-shirt. There's also the Bouncers t-shirt, which actually is a hot seller, I've been told. I haven't seen the check yet, so I don't know how hot they are.
Your dad's getting it right now.
And a little something for our listeners. If you use the code word bad medicine, you'll get 50% off.
Hey!
It's not bad medicine, stupid. It's bad medicine podcast.
And then I also have a koozie up there, 16-ounce koozie to keep your beer cool, which every show I have fans walking up and they want me to sign it. And it's like, it's foam for one. And for two, you're putting an ice cold beer in there. So my signature is not going to stay, but I'll do it.
That's why you keep one dry.
Yep.
And then if you want if you're in the Milwaukee area or the Northern Illinois area and you want to train, look up the Thumper's Den Wrestling Academy. Send good old Frankie the Thumper DeFalco an email, and I'll train you to be a wrestler.
That's awesome. Well, hey, Matt, again, thanks for taking the time.
Man, we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, to do this and everything. We know you guys are busy. And, like I said, best of luck on everything. And it's good to see one of the good guys make it. So I'm proud of you, just from a personal standpoint. I'm really, really proud to see where you've gone. Buck the system, for all the people who might have said you couldn't do it. Hey, shit, here you are, getting it done, making a living. It's awesome.
Yeah. When they told me I can't, I just tried harder.
Absolutely.
There you go. Good
There
words
is.
to live by.
We are always watching you, buddy, and we appreciate the entertainment that you give us.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much.
Have a beer on us tonight.
I will.
Because I will. Glug, glug.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, shut up, Andrew. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Bad Medicine podcast number 9. We're wrapping it up here with Matt Winchester. Want to say thanks to who should be our sponsors. Again, I'm going to say BF Goodwrench, All Terrain TA Tires. You should be giving us some damn money. Ford Trucks, you ought to be giving us money. Honda Power Sports, make the best stuff there is. Send us money our way. And of course, as always, where would I be in my life without Jim Beam whiskey?
Which Winchester loves.
It works especially with the rats.
Especially that one in Sheboygan.
Winchester, if you have any sponsors that you'd like to see, you can rattle some off if you'd like.
I got a few sponsors, so I'm good. But hey, any beer company that wants to sponsor me, I'll drink your beer.
Boom.
There it is.
All right, Matt, good talking to you, and we will see you later. Catch you guys on the next one. Bad Medicine Podcast. See ya.